Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Reinhold Show podcast. Man, you're only going to hear one interview of this gentleman I'm bringing on, but he was so damn good the first time. We're coming back for the second time. Ross, is it true that you literally created a Snapchat manual that Diddy used?
Yeah, man. So I was speaking. It was crazy. I was speaking at an event probably like 2 years ago, Tech 808, and one of the guys who was sitting on the panel with me, who was hosting, worked for Diddy, and he came up to me afterwards. He was like, "Man, you look so familiar. Like, I know your face. I know you from somewhere." And he was like, "Did you do something on SlideShare?" And I was like, "Yeah, man. I put together like an ultimate guide to Snapchat using SlideShare." And he was like, "Dude, I use that to show Mr. Combs how to use Snapchat." And I was like, "What?" Mic drop. I'm good.
Wow. No doubt. Now, before we get into the conversation, I just want to introduce Ross. Ross is a entrepreneur through and through with a passion for technology communications. He has spent the last 7 years working in digital marketing through his company Foundation Marketing and has had the chance to work with brands ranging from Fortune 500 companies to startups and everything in between. Ross is also the co-founder of a software called Crate and the e-commerce site Hustle and Grind. He was named by Mashable as a top Snapchat marketer and has been published in Forbes, Huffington Post, VentureBeat, and more, and kind of like a Wu-Tang hip-hop head, man. I mean, you're kind of bringing the hip-hop vibe into marketing. So, Ross, welcome to the show, man.
Thanks for having me on, Ryan. I'm excited to chat with you and share some insights with your audience.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate it. So just before we get into some good stuff, I've been doing, even in the last 24 hours, man, I think I've been digging deep on you because I'm kind of like, wow, there's some cool things happening here. But I just give us a little bit of your background, how you got into marketing. Right. I really like the story that you started off with your mom's basement, and and I think it is notable to say that, hey, you are in Halifax, Nova Scotia. And maybe I don't mean it to be a judgmental statement, but when I think of Halifax, Nova Scotia, I don't think of this like marketing mecca, like where all this, places people come from. So tell us about yourself.
Yeah, no, definitely. So my journey in the marketing world definitely started kind of like most marketers, you kind of fall into it, right? So for me, it all started, I would say, early days. I always had this passion for entrepreneurship and I wanted to be my own boss. And I remember in the early days, my first taste of entrepreneurship came from the fact that, remember do-rags, and when do-rags were all the rage and everybody wanted to have a fresh do-rag that gave you the waves and stuff. Like they were the jam back then. And I remember taking my entire allowance and buying a handful of do-rags and bringing them back to school. And being in Nova Scotia, like there's not a lot of places that you could get do-rags. So all my boys were like pumped. They were like, "Ross, where are you getting these do-rags from?" And I just started selling do-rags for like $10, $5 a piece when I was buying them for $2. So that gave me my first taste of entrepreneurship. I was able to buy poutine. That's a thing in Canada where you put fries and gravy and stuff like that. But essentially, once that took off and I was able to see like the value of business, I was like, okay, I need to double down on this idea and just be an entrepreneur for the rest of my life. So when I got into university, I really got my first taste of digital marketing. I was living in my parents' basement, drinking instant coffee in the middle of Nova Scotia. I grew up in a small community called Preston, one of the largest Black communities in Canada. And we essentially were just like, I was just like, okay, I love football. I'm not really interested in Shakespeare. They want me to write about Shakespeare in school, but I'm not really feeling it. Like,
wait a second. Preston has one of the largest Black communities in Canada?
Yeah, one of the largest in all of Canada.
Like, how far is that from Halifax?
So from Halifax, we're about an hour out. So yeah, it's an hour outside of Halifax. A huge population. It was essentially like, if you go back, go back in time, it's like the Underground Railroad that came up to Canada. They settled in Preston. So if you look at like the Maroons, you look at the Black Loyalists who were like set free, they all kind of went up to Preston, and that's where they kind of got their homestead and their land. And it was a very segregated community for many years, and it's still very Black, like I'd say 95%.
Wow.
So it's pretty.
Damn. So what you're saying is, if I want to see Black folk, I got to bring my Black ass down to Preston, Nova Scotia.
You do.
Damn. I was not aware of that. Shame on me. But anyway, sorry, continue.
Definitely. So yeah, So from that, I was like living in my parents' basement, and I had this passion for football and fantasy sports. So I started a blog, and I started creating content, and the content just started to take off. It was getting picked up by sporting mags like all over the world, and it was getting featured. And I was an 18, 19-year-old kid living in my parents' basement, but people were taking my advice and they were making decisions based off of it. So that's when it all clicked that it doesn't matter where you're at in the world. There's really no borders thanks to this thing called the internet. And if you create content and you spread it out to the world and you go into these niche communities, that there's an opportunity there. So I doubled down on that, and I started to actually be able to pay for a significant amount of my tuition with that blog, set up a handful of affiliate sites, and I was able to make a good chunk of change with it. But as the traffic went up, the marks went down, and my mom made me shut down the fantasy football blog. So I then transitioned from having a fantasy football blog into a marketing blog. And that's what exists today at rawsimmonds.com. And that really kind of took off and became the gateway for my entire career.
You definitely could have started up like a fan duel or something like that, man.
Man, I wish I did. I still tell my mom till this day, I'm like, Mom, I could have been big, but I did all.
Mom, I could have. You know what? It's interesting. I mean, talking to somebody like you, again, I think out west here, and even maybe like, a little more east in Toronto from you, and maybe even in mid Canada, like in the, Winnipeg, Manitoba areas, I've literally talked to a lot of companies and business owners. And they really always kind of put it back to, well, I'm not in the right environment, or, hey, I need to move here, or, hey, I need to go there. And, for me, I completely disagree, because I just think you're right. As long as you have the internet, you're really in the mix. And, I mean, for you, I'll never forget it again. I think Beverly liked one of your comments or something like that on LinkedIn. And man, I got excited because I'm like, okay. And the first thing I thought when I seen your picture was, oh, this guy's got to be like from New York or something. Right. And then I'm like just going through your profile quick, and I'm like, whoa.
Right.
Halifax? Yeah. Like Halifax in Canada? Like, is that not like Halifax in New York? Is there Halifax in New York? So I'm like, oh, snap. And there's actually another gentleman on your feed or something like that said, I've been really watching this kid. I've been really watching Ross. And, so you seem like you had a lot of accolades. And I just thought, wow, man. So kudos to you. I want to talk a little bit about, you did make a post the other day, and this is a huge topic, and I think my listeners would get really good value, is you did write something it's one simple question, and it's an awkward question, but it's, why the hell did you unfollow me?
Right.
You know? And this is the dirty question that nobody really wants to talk about. So I think this is a great segue into the rest of our conversation is, why did you unfollow me?
Right. Yeah. So I think it's something that someone approached me and they were like, Ross, why did you unfollow me? And it was awkward. Like you said, like it's very awkward to have somebody say, bro, you unfollowed me. What's up with that? But like you do have to keep your feed clean. Like it's good for your mental health, I believe. So I unfollowed someone and I had to let them know why. And rather than taking the kind of traditional approach where I would say, oh man, the algorithm must have did that. I don't know. Sometimes when I'm scrolling through, I automatically unfollow people. I'll follow you back right away. But I was straight up with them and I told them, like, there's a few reasons why. Number one, you sound like a robot. Like everything you say is the same as everybody else, and you're not really showing any personality. So to me, like I didn't engage with it. I feel like I'm getting the same thing from you as I'm getting from 20 other people. Like I just wanted to get that off of my feed. The second one was everybody acts like they have to wear this cape all the time. Like everybody wants to be Superman. They want to be Batman. They want to be Wonder Woman. Instead of just letting it all down and just showing that you're human, which I think is so important in the social media landscape, because if you think about it, social media is just a highlight reel. Like whenever you look at somebody's content on social media, it's a constant highlight reel. You never get to see the behind the scenes, the struggle, the pain, what people are really going through. It's a very curated and like filtered approach that you see. So I told them.
Just let me interject on that though. I think that you make a good point. So you basically say it's a highlight reel of people's lives, and that's why a lot of people say, don't get too caught up in comparing your life to somebody else's life on social media, because you don't know the behind the scenes. Now, on the flip side, I do believe that transparency should be a must. For me,
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. So for me, I do believe that transparency should be a must. And I feel like, I owe it to my audience to show a little of behind the scenes. Now, Here's where for me, it's too much for my appetite. When people get on social media and let their whole life out, like I couldn't afford to pay my bill, or this happened. Like in your opinion, as an expert, where is the threshold between saying, okay, I want to show you my real life, but then where's that cutoff for you?
Yeah. So for me, it's a constant juggling act. But for me, it's like, just because you're a professional doesn't mean you have to be a professional every single day. So like if I constantly solely tweeted about marketing and business, and that was all I ever did, and I never talked about the Eagles and how much I love Philadelphia on Sundays, if I never talked about like how much I love Fresh Prince, if I never took pictures in an ugly Christmas sweater that reference Wu-Tang or anything like that, then I would say I'm just being a robot. But I think that you have to show your personality, like show the fact that if you listen to Bieber, then show people that you listen to Bieber and tell them about it. I think that there's a balance between it. For me, I try to always share positivity. Like I'm not going to go on social media and start complaining because I had the flu. Like I'm not that type of person. But I will definitely show people myself, like going to my grandparents' house on Thanksgiving. Like those things are like, that's real. So show people those real moments. And if you do happen to lose somebody in your life, like that's something that you can also share. But you have to just recognize, like, it's not a begging or asking for people to kind of have sympathy. It's just like you showing people a little glimpse into the reality that, you hurt too, just like everybody else. Care about things just like everybody else. I think that that's important.
You know what? I think it's really cool. I was looking on, do you know Mackenzie Clench? He's one of your LinkedIn guys, man. When I did a Ross Simmonds digital deep dive, man. I'm telling you, I dove so far in. I'm surprised you don't see a picture behind your head above your lamp right now. However, Mackenzie, he wrote this, and I'm going to give him a shout out. I even used it on my LinkedIn. I'm waiting for him to accept my connection request so I can give him the proper shout out. So if he says anything to you, just say, yo, man, the guy actually did shout you out. Now, he said, yes, love this, Ross. He says, I've been arguing this for a while now. And basically, this was in response to the whole unfollow thing. He said, life speaks to life and all that. Without a degree of beautifully messy and engaging humanity, a lot of social media accounts turn into an online version of your call is important to us, or worse, if you're calling about billing, press 1, or even worse, press 2 if you'd like to speak to a human. And if that's the case, give up now. And I just kind of thought, and I think he's a copywriter to some degree because his wording, and here's, man, shout out to people who can write. My grammar is terrible. I am a horrible writer. I have great ideas, but man, I have so much respect for people who can get sexy with words, man. Like they just are a wordsmith, and you're reading.
Good. He's really good.
Yeah. And you're reading, you're just like, ooh, what is that about? Right.
Yeah.
So shout out to him on that. But again, it's kind of going back to your point about being a robot. I mean, him saying that, do you feel that's appropriate? Like, what's your opinion on that?
Yeah, I'm with him, right? Like, I agree 100%. I think if you're constantly just spitting out the same stuff over and over again, people are going to be like, who is this? Like, who are you? Not as like a professional, but as a person. Like, who are you? Like, what are you all about? People don't connect with pixels, right? Like, people connect with people.
Absolutely.
So like, I think it's important that you show that you're a human at the end of the day.
Absolutely. I think too, kind of taking that a step further, for you, the guest I had on after we chatted yesterday, she's an Asian R&B singer and pharmacist.
Oh, cool.
So we talked a lot about cultural expectations from parents, meaning in the Asian culture and in the Black culture is, the way out, especially when you talk to parents that have immigrated over, the number one way out that has always been ingrained in our mentalities was through education. Go to school, get a good education, go to school, get a good education. And then there's people like Ross and Ryan who are in the basement saying, yeah, I love the education component, but I think that we're getting educated every day. I mean, this is education right now. Yeah. But, for you said, I'm an entrepreneur. Now, you and I both know if we went to any curriculum back in 1999, there's no curriculum even that says entrepreneurship. Nothing.
No.
Right?
No,
now, have you ever spoken at any schools or been involved?
I speak at schools often.
Okay. Now, if you go sit into a marketing lecture right now at a university, it is so far behind. So far behind. horrible.
Yeah,
so my question to you is, she basically said, Ryan, I'm a pharmacist and I'm an R&B singer. And how do I market, or how do I push, both my personalities? She said, I'm a pharmacist because it pays the bills, and it allows me to buy equipment and invest in my artistry. And then she said, that's my one cap. I said, are you happy doing that? And she said, no, my parents wanted me to do that. And then she flipped over and said, well, I'm an R&B person. I love that. And I actually said to her on the call, and I love your perspective on this, I said, why do you have to pick one? I said, here's the thing. If I go and get at my local drugstore, a prescription filled, and the pharmacist is Asian, that's so typical. It's so typical, right? But if I seen a pharmacist who was an R&B singer who was sitting in front of a piano and had her pharmacy coat on, that would be unique to me. I said, could you imagine on Instagram stories, you were showing pictures of your fingers, literally counting out pills. And then the next story, you're hitting the keys. And she kind of thought about it. And I said, why do you have to pick one? So somebody came to you and said, Ross, how can I merge these, or how can I combine my passion with something that I actually love? Like, what would you tell them?
I would say go for it. Like, if you look at me, I've kind of lived that, right? So I have passions in a variety of different things, and I constantly am trying to kind of create a life that allows me to do all of them. So at its core, I am a great marketer. Like, humble brag aside, like, I know that I do it very well. I service clients very well. I can drive results. I can help them do a lot of great things with the marketing side of things. That's easy for me. But when it came to the coffee company, Hustle and Grind, I didn't know much about product marketing. I didn't really know much about how to launch a product. I love coffee. I wanted to find a way to write off all the coffee that I drink. And I said, I'm going to create a business that does this. So on top of that, there's a link to the whole inspiration side of things, which gets me excited. That fires me up, being able to help entrepreneurs actually create that side hustle. Like, that stuff excited me. So I was like, I'm going to take some of the capital that I'm generating with the marketing business, and I'm going to start Hustle and Grind. And then that started to take off, that succeeded. And I was like, all right, what's the next challenge? Something that also interests me is the software game. So I needed to sink my teeth into Crate. And I was like, I'm going to double down on this. And that's just the way that it works. It's like, if I find something that I'm interested in, I'm going to I'm going to create a roadmap around what it's going to take for me to do all three of those things at once. And then I'm going to go for it. So I don't think that at the end of the day, man, you know this, we talked about it yesterday. There's a shelf life to all of us. Yeah. I just saw a tweet today that rocked me. I don't know if you're familiar with Combat Jack, but Combat Jack just passed away.
Oh.
Hip hop legend.
Yeah.
Podcast legend. Like, the dude passed away. He's only in his 50s.
Yeah.
When I see that, it's a reminder that we all have this shelf life. And if you want to do multiple things, if you want to be a pharmacist, an R&B singer, and you want to open up a cafe that sells amazing donuts, do it all, or at least try. Because at the end of the day, we are all going to expire. And when you expire, you better be able to look back and say, man, the best I got. And I got to do some crazy fun things on that journey. So for me, it's like, embrace it all.
Today, and I came up with this quote, and I'm going back to it, and I Googled it to see if anybody even said it, and nobody said it. So I'm taking, I don't like to ever put a quote and then put my own name, because I'm just like, it's a little like morbid. It's like too humble braggish, because it's not really humble brag. It's like, dude, you love yourself too much, right? But it's, today I'm many things, but in the future I could be many more things, maybe. And I had a few listeners yesterday comment on that, and they said, Ryan, it really that statement really kind of bellowed out. There's a struggle going on in the world right now, and it's for the first time ever. There's no excuse. I don't care if you're broke. I don't care if you got no money, but if you can afford this, even I'm doing a podcast right now. There's an app called Anchor. I'm sure you've heard of Anchor. Yeah. I mean, you as long as you got a smartphone, you don't need any of the fancy microphone. If you got something to say, you just talk into your phone and it will automatically upload it to iTunes and everything for you, right? But you're very right. We all owe a death. This is something that I'm actually sad about in my own life. I feel that growing up, because how old are you, Ross?
30. I'm 30.
Okay, I'm 30. I'm 33. So growing up, I felt that I always I never had like an identity in the sense of I was a football player. And here's what's funny about me. I was always multi-talented. So I would go to football practice and then I would go to choral music because I could sing. And then I also would play trumpet and saxophone. So, nice. But I didn't consider myself an artist because I wasn't good at drawing. But then I realized, and actually when I met my wife is an amazing artist and business person. But she just really opened my eyes to say artistry doesn't mean just drawing. Like artistry doesn't, I mean, man, artistry is in everything that we do.
Yeah.
And the moment I figured out, I remember even talking to her about it. And this is like full disclosure, because people back then thought, oh man, Ryan's got it going on. His life is good. Everything's good. But inside I was struggling because I'm like, what am I? What am I going to do? And what's my identity? And then she just said, Ryan, you are your identity. You might change things every 5 years. You might literally say, even businesses, I get a little bored after 5 years. Right. You know, like right now, I own a marketing company and we do very well. And I've had 2 offers to be bought out. And I think in my head, like I'm at that 5-year mark again. Right. And I love marketing, but I said to my wife, okay, if it's just going to be automotive, I wouldn't say I'm bored, but I've done automotive. I understand that industry so well. So now, like you, I'm kind of branching out. The podcast to me was what hustle and grind is for you. Right. You know what I'm saying? And I'm basically saying I'm going to double down on the podcast. I'm going to talk to other people. And it's got me excited again. Exactly. You know?
Yeah, so that's awesome.
Segueing into Instagram, Hustle and Grind has 120,000 followers and it's growing. Right. Tell everybody, like, first of all, are you selling coffee? Like, what the hell do you do? And how does it actually make money if it makes money?
For sure. Yeah, so Hustle and Grind is a business that essentially sells coffee. We sell T-shirts, we sell posters. Yeah, exactly. I have to hook you up. Send me your address after this. I'll get you some Hustle blends.
Oh, I like that, man. Shout out to Hustle.
Exactly. So yeah, we sell coffee. We ship it off to offices all over North America. We've got our posters up in some of the biggest startups across North America as well. And what we do is we constantly just try to kind of create content and stories that resonate with people. We also have a blog that's generating thousands of views every month. We believe in the combination of 3 things. And the first time we heard it, it was from a real estate company. I forget exactly who it was, but it's the idea of blending commerce, community, and content. So the commerce side is selling the posters, the coffee, and things like that. We have the content through the blog. We also sell a few ebooks to help people with marketing, getting started. That's like the side hustle ideas list. And then from a community standpoint, we really view our Instagram following as a community, and we have plans to build that into something a little bit bigger. So right now we have a Facebook group called The Hustle Corner, where entrepreneurs from around the world are connecting and collaborating and hiring each other to do projects and stuff like that. So it's a growing community, and the goal is to kind of just keep allowing people to kind of create that side hustle and then eventually turn it into something that can be maybe their main.
Man, we got to insert a clap for that. And when you hear this podcast, Ross, you're going to be hearing a whole bunch of clapping. We're going to even do the Jamaican air horn. They can't keep a good man down. But I'll tell you this is amazing to me. Okay, Facebook groups. Man, I feel like you haunted me with a few things when we spoke yesterday. The number one thing I took away was like, I got to step up my LinkedIn game. And I just love, like, there's something about it. I love Instagram, and I told you that yesterday. But the other one was Facebook groups. And I actually was like up at 3 o'clock this morning, and I'm just going through the groups. And I'm just like, this to me, there's something I just can't get romantic about. I know it's powerful if done right. But I feel like, and maybe we can just talk about this again, because I think anybody who's in business out there right now, I mean, you even said like 1 billion people. How can somebody, like, I'll use my show as an example. I asked you yesterday, I said, Ross, what do you think would be a good way of connecting my listeners with my guests and everything in between? And you said you could do Ask Me Anythings. You could do several different things. How does somebody start a group and then get people to care about that group per se? Because I feel like sometimes the groups I've been a part of, it seems so self-serving to the organizer.
Right.
And I'm sure you see that.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, it is. That's a great question. So it's twofold. So the first question is, how do you get people to join? So
correct.
It's essentially this. At the end of the podcast, you say, hey, listeners, if you want to connect with me further, you join the Facebook group, facebook.com/blah, blah, blah.
100%.
And then you tell them the value that you're going to add to them that isn't self-serving. So the benefit of having a Facebook group is you're creating a community. And when you have a community, a conversation happens, a community kind of takes on a life of its own, and you don't even have to be there. So if you're out walking and you're doing your own thing, like you don't actually have to be fully engaged in the community to start seeing somebody else go up and put up a post saying, hey, I'm trying to hire someone who can edit my next podcast. Does anyone have any ideas? And then the other people in your community start to add them value. Or maybe if you want to be the person who facilitates that, every Tuesday, you're going to host a Hiring Tuesday where you're going to schedule a post in Buffer that automatically shares in your group that says, hey, everybody listening, if you want to, if you're hiring someone, share the link in this comment, let everybody in this group know, and you guys can connect with each other. And then on Thursday, you can have a Instagram promotion day where you schedule another post that says, hey, everyone, we need to connect with each other. If we all grow, you grow together. Let's all grow each other's accounts. Share your Instagram link below, and we're all going to follow each other because today's the day we spread love. Those types of things. Then at the beginning of each week, you have an accountability Monday where you share. Everybody needs to say what they're going to be accountable to accomplish in the next 30 days. And then when 30 days come, you already have it blocked off in your schedule where you're going to follow up with every single person that commented, and you're going to see if they did what they said they would on January 1st or December 1st. And then they're getting real value from it because you're not only telling people to listen to your new episodes, but you're also holding them accountable. That's why people pay coaches to be held accountable. As entrepreneurs, a big challenge is we have no one to be accountable to. So if you can lock that type of engagement in, that's where you add value.
So let me ask you this. This is a verbal contract we're about to enter into. So if I started a group, would you join my group, Ross?
I'm in.
I feel like this is like, would you be my friend, man? Would you be my friend,
exactly.
Ross? It's so, this is what I love about social media. Like it's interesting. Like, have you ever met anybody that's followed you online and then you meet them offline and maybe they said, because I'm sure you must have had some negativity at least. I've had a little negativity. So I've met some, like a lot of people follow me online and then I met a couple offline. And the rare time I do get this comment where they're like, man, Ryan, you're so nice offline. Like, and I'm like, am I not nice online? They're like, no, but you're, like I'm opinionated. But I'm not negative. Like if you look at my content, a lot of it's very positive. I don't rant. I don't do any of that. But I think, and I've had, humble brag for me. I've had a lot of success, I've been TV, you name it, man, so much. Like I got stacks, but people always assume that success will breed ego. And I don't have any ego, man. Like I am not afraid to I just don't have ego. And when it comes to, I think even people look at material, when I was talking to my wife about this and I said, if I was like, let's say I had $55 million right now, I wouldn't even know what to go and buy. I wouldn't even know what to go and buy. I love my life, man. I got homes, I got real estate, I got nice ride, I got all that. So I feel like when people go to social media, like they get, like they almost create their own story. No, what's the word? They create their own narrative sometimes. And I feel that I always try to pull people like into a different narrative if I can. And that's why sometimes if I meet you on LinkedIn, I'm like, yo, do you have Instagram? Because I want you to see different diversity. So for you, you're a nice dude, right? But has there ever been any time where you're like, wow, I'm really shocked that was kind of the vibe that, XYZ person got? Have you ever had any of that?
I have, yes. And can I answer that question as soon as I grab my charger?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely, man.
I'll be right back.
No worries. No worries. Well, everybody, I think we should be playing the Jeopardy music game right now. For those of you who are listening to the podcast right now, I am watching Ross. Ross is now about to plug in his computer charger, and we are going to have some Jeopardy music start to take place. Ross,
my apologies.
No, Ross, I was just telling everybody we're going to play Jeopardy music, and I was giving them like an ad lib of what I'm saying. I'm like, I can see Ross's butt sit down on the chair. He's bending over to look at his. But yeah, no, please answer that question, because I think it's, again, I just think it's the details that people really struggle with. So could you shed light on that?
Yeah, for sure. So I've gotten a lot of negativity. I mean, at the end of the day, anybody who does something that's different or tries to do anything that's different, you're going to be met with negativity. I wouldn't say that I haven't received criticism that I'm not the same person online as I am offline. Like, I'm pretty consistent with that. Yep. Or at least I try to be. And typically whenever I meet people, they say that there's some consistency there. So the one piece that I've received a lot of negativity around is like, some people just think that you can be too positive. Like, a lot of people don't want you to be too positive, and they rag on you for being too positive, which is the type of criticism that I've gotten in the past. People are saying, okay, here you go again with like these inspirational quotes and stuff like that. So I get those types of things, but to me, it's like, if you stay focused on the long-term vision, like, I don't get caught up in that at all. Like, I love getting critiqued. I love getting feedback from people. It just allows me to either learn about something that I can improve on, or it's just like a sign to me that I'm doing something right. So for me, I do see it. Everybody who's trying something different is going to see it. Like, I embrace the haters. I love it when it comes to kind of seeing comments that are negative. Like, I get people commenting all the time saying that I don't understand branding because I throw all these hip hop references into my content. Like, I wrote a blog post called How to Take Your Content from 0 to 100 real friggin' quick. And people hated on it because I was making a reference to Drake. But I'm not going to stop staying true to myself just because there's a few critics. Like, my content is targeted towards people who don't take themselves so seriously that they can't appreciate a solid Drake reference. I've got another one which was. Do you feel like it's a cultural / racial thing in terms of that when people are when you throw in the hip hop? I think it's more of people have this idea around what a professional is, and they think that you can't. They don't think that hip hop can be professional. They don't think that hip hop fits in the professional world. And I don't know if it's a race thing. I'd say culture. Yes, I'd say that it's a cultural difference.
Wait a sec. You know what's so funny about that? Hip hop, man. Whoa, man. I mean, I feel like I should slam it down, start like throwing down some black coffee or something, but. No. Hip hop is bred in everyone's. Yeah. Here's what we have this epidemic out here in out in Alberta. I'm in BC right now, but you'll have the same people say, "Yo, man, this hip hop stuff, I don't get it," and then they're rolling by in their truck. Boom, boom, boom. Right. It's a hard knock life for us. Like, I'm just like, what the hell? Like, you're confused. Hip hop breeds into everything, man. And the metaphors, hip hop to me is one of the first things in the world that really captured the art of storytelling, you know? And I mean, I just feel people use it to get jammed up, and you got, Caucasian dudes that are pressing hard in business. They're doing the whole suit and tie and they're going hard on it. Right. So, I mean, sorry to interject, but yeah, go ahead and finish. But man, that's crazy.
It is crazy. Like, I wrote a blog post many moons ago. It's probably like 4 years ago now. But my blog post was why you should let your kids listen to hip hop. And it was like, you can listen to this emo stuff, but your kid's gonna be like in a sad spot, or they can listen to old school Jay-Z and they can be excited about the potential of changing the world. Like, I would rather my kid listen to that than something that's going to have them depressed, thinking that their girl's going to leave them in high school and it's time for them to kind of go into a corner and cry. Like, I'd rather them listen to something that's going to get them pumped up. So that piece gets tons of negative comments all the time from people saying like hip hop shouldn't be listened to, that it's trash and stuff like that. And I respect it. Like, I get that some people don't agree with me. I'm completely okay with that, but it's just more feedback from the world. So for me,
what's so funny about this though is, can you tell me a genre that's professional music? Like, what does that even mean? Exactly. Is it country music? Is that country music where I took my Chevy to the levee, but the levee was dry? Them good old boys were drinking whiskey and wine, and then
right. Exactly.
You know, so I mean, again, you know, teach their own. That's interesting, though. I think everybody who's listening right now, please, you know, hear what he said about the whole positivity. Sometimes when you come out of the gate and you're so positive, I always say you can walk into a room and sometimes people just straight up don't like you because you're so damn positive. And anybody who's really positive and grinding and self-aware, you're like vinegar on somebody's insecure wound. Like it will like amplify through their head, right?
It's true.
Very true. So keep doing your thing. Time management. We talked a little bit about this yesterday. You're telling groups and you're everywhere and you're servicing clients and you have numerous side hustles. How many hours per day would you say you work? And then what are some, you know, little hacks that you can get the most done with the least amount of time? And is there any apps or little tools that you use to keep you in line?
Right. So yeah, I work a lot. I'll be honest. Like I'm not going to sit here and say I don't work a lot. Like a lot of people are constantly saying, no, I have perfect work-life balance. I do that very well. But for me, I don't believe that it's a balance. I think it's just a work-life integration. So when you integrate your work with your life and you're able to kind of just do everything that you want, and what you want includes your work. It includes spending time with your partner. It includes spending time with friends and family. And you integrate all of that. And nothing really is sacrificed, and nothing, or I wouldn't say not sacrificed, but nothing is kind of giving you grief and you're not upset because you're not spending enough time with something, then I think you're doing okay. So on a daily basis, I'm pretty much plugged in probably like a good chunk of the day. But like at the end of the day, I still take my time off. Like I'll take a vacation. I make sure that like every year we go on a trip to Philly and catch a game. I try to go on trips all the time. So work allows me to go on trips with my wife and she'll come with me to Orlando. And if I'm doing that, I make sure that the conference flying me out is going to get us some tickets to Disney. And then we're going to do 3 days at Disney. So I think that it's integrating your work in your life that allows you to kind of find that ultimate happiness. So for me, I try to always be optimizing for happiness, and I get a lot of joy from doing my work. So I do my work, and I think that it's an enjoyable thing. In terms of how I balance it all, I said this yesterday, I'll say it again. It comes down to that acronym CREAM. So CREAM, Wu-Tang,
dollar bills, yo.
Around me, dollar bills,
yo.
Exactly. So when it comes to this, rather than saying CREAM cash rules everything around me, it's calendars rule everything around me. I live and die by my calendar, whether it's professional life or personal life. If something's not in my calendar, it's very unlikely to get done. And I truly believe that that's one of the biggest difference makers between people who are productive with their 24 hours in a day and those who are unproductive. If you don't track something, you cannot control it. And everybody always talks about how they want to manage their time. Time management isn't a thing. You can't manage time. It's a constant. Between now and the time that we jumped on this podcast, neither of us could control whether or not time went forward. It just happens. We can't manage that. The only thing that we can actually manage is the efforts and the things that we're doing in that time. So by controlling and looking at your calendar, you can see where your priorities are. You can see what you're going to be doing tomorrow. You can see what you're going to be doing next week. And most importantly, at the end of a month, you can look back at the last month and you can say, what did I do? What was I able to accomplish? And where were my priorities? So for me, if I see that my entire calendar is filled with work, I can say next month I have to switch things up and I have to start spending some more time with my wife. Like you can make those decisions when you are actually tracking your time. So I love calendars. I think that they're the most brilliant productivity hack in the world. And then outside of that, like there's tons of tools out there that you can use. I use a tool called Trello to manage my day in terms of like content creation and stories that I'm trying to get out. But we talked about this yesterday. Tools are just tools. You need to have a mindset and you have to understand how to use those tools if you want to use them correctly. So for me, it comes down to really just relying on a calendar. And I'm still a little bit traditional in the sense that every week I start with a paper and pad and I create my to-do list. And I go through that at the end.
If I look in your bag right now and it's your must-have items, and I call it the digital marketing toolbox, but if I look at, like, I got, this is my, this messenger bag right here is like my life. Like this is the only, like if I miss this thing, like I'm done. Now in this bag, it's a very strategic bag. My next thing that I have, I could not live without,
So you definitely have a charger. It's going to be a portable charger as well. So I'm going to have a portable charger. Got one here, actually.
Okay, there you go.
I always throw one of those in. I've got my laptop. I've got my phone. I've got a wallet in there. I've got a thing called a Gerber. I wonder if I have it nearby. I don't. But a Gerber, it's a little tool that can be used as a wrench. It's like a Swiss Army knife. I've had it since I was probably like 18 or something like that. It's the same one. It's a wrench. It's a knife. It's a bottle opener. It can do a bunch of crazy things. Yep. So I have that. But I'm pretty minimalistic. So like for me, it's like I need my digital technology in place. And then I have this old-fashioned Gerber, and I also have a moleskin that I carry with me as well, which is my notepad, but also a place that I would scribble out. And the notepad is interesting because I remember it like it was yesterday, and I have tons. I have a bookshelf. I always talk about how books are important. Like I've got a bookshelf is one of my prized possessions. But an entire section of my bookshelf is all of these different notepads. And for the past like 8 years, I've had notepads that I've written ideas in, that I've kept like thoughts in and like scribbles in my to-do list. And I remember when I was working in the 9 to 5, I was driving home from work and I looked over and I see my notepad just sitting next to me in the front seat. And I pulled over immediately because I had a bad day at work and I was like, I need to plan my life. So I took this notepad and I just started writing in it. And I figured out what I wanted to do in the next 2 years, what I wanted to do in the next 3 years, the next 5 years. And then I took a picture of it. I sent it to my now wife. And then I was like, this is what I'm going to do. And then the next week I quit my job. But it was all because I had that notepad to really plan and figure out what I wanted and recognize like, by having the ability to just scribble and write things out, you can kind of figure out where you want to go. So I still to this day carry a notepad with me everywhere I go, and I think it's a great thing to have on you at all times.
Do you wear a watch?
I do. So I have an Apple Watch that I wear. It's funny. It was a wedding gift of mine for my wife, and I don't have it on now. So hopefully she doesn't see the recording. Would you consider yourself like a fancy guy, or you don't care about material? Like, are you like what's the swag of Ross Simmonds? That's a great question. So I
seen the suspenders. I seen this. You had some suspenders, yeah.
I love my suspenders. So I'd say there's a few things that I have staples on and that I'll spend my capital on as it relates to kind of materialistic things. One is the suspenders. I like a nice pair of Reebok pumps any day of the week. Like I've got a mad collection. I just got a new pair delivered. They have like the Basquiat kind of look on them with the crown and stuff. I'm pumped to wear those. So I love pumps, but I also always had a dream car, which is a Mini Cooper. So I got that 10 years ago, and I just kind of upgraded that. Yeah. And that's kind of those have been my things. So I've been able to get the materialistic things that I've always wanted and that I've loved. Like I fell in love with pumps because I could never get pumps when I was a kid, and I always loved them. I just couldn't afford to get pumps. I always had the Shacks, stuff like that, but I wanted the pumps.
So do you wear sneakers then most times?
So I have two types. I have dress shoes as well. I love wearing dress shoes. They're usually denim. That's kind of like my thing. But yeah, I wear
denim dress shoes. Okay, yeah.
They always get compliments for something. Like nobody wears them. Nobody wears them.
Yeah.
But whenever I show up at an event, it turns heads. So I stuck with it, similar to the way that the suspenders worked. My grandfather always wore suspenders, and then he passed them down to me when he passed away, and I put them on, went to a conference one day. People went nuts. I was like, okay, I'm going to start wearing suspenders. So
interesting, man.
So for me, I love travel. Like travel is my jam. If I can spend my money on anything, I'm going to spend it on traveling with friends, with family. I want to see the world more than anything. So for me, I really just have the Mini. I've got my Reebok collection, and then I've got some suspenders. And then outside of that, when I want to spend my money and splurge, I'm going on a trip.
Do you ever watch that Complex News? They do the sneaker shopping episode. Complex News is amazing. It's owned by Mark. It's owned by Mark Echo. You know Mark Echo.
Yeah,
Mark,
Mark
you talk about a guy that's multifaceted. Mark Echo. True. Wow, right?
I didn't know he was into Complex. That's crazy.
He owns Complex. So Complex News. You've heard of Joe Budden, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Joe Budden, there's a show called Everyday Struggle where him and DJ Academics are on. I think Joe Budden actually just left the show yesterday. Yeah. Cause he's a controversial dude, but, right. And I like his podcast too. He's got a good podcast. You know, I asked about the materialistic things because it's interesting. I think that, you know, just like you, I mean, I grew up very, very humble beginnings, and right. I feel like the moment I could take my life into my control, there's a turning point for me. I was choosing whether to play football, and I was very good at football. So for me, my goal, because I did play in the States, my goal was I said, if I'm not going to put my body through this kind of, you know, craziness, right. unless I can go and at least like maybe redshirt and make like an NFL team. Right. CFL was always an option, but most CFL players, they have second jobs. You don't make much money, right?
No, you don't. Yeah.
So at that point, I was kind of moonlighting also as an insurance broker. So I was doing like personal insurance, commercial insurance.
Right.
And I'll never forget, this was a turning point for me. It's so funny. Life is very serendipitous. So I had a client come in and I had to do business insurance for him. And this was, I want to say, it's got to be like more than 10 years ago. But he was just getting on the internet buzz. So he owned a website design company, and this is before the GoDaddies and the Wixes. So if you remember, if you wanted a nice website, like you had to pay money for it because you had to get somebody to code it from scratch.
Right.
Now he's sitting there. I'm like, well, how much are you charging for these websites? He's like, oh, I just did one. I charged $10,000. I was like, 10? Right. Wow. You know, I'm young, right?
Right.
And I'm making $31,000 a year for my salary. And, I work my ass off in that job. And my boss said, yo, at the end of the year, I'm going to give you a raise. Anyways, so I just met this guy and he planted this kind of seed and he said, you know, maybe we should partner. So I met him for lunch. And then 2 days later, I had my interview, my performance review. And my boss said, he was so happy for this raise. I said, okay, I'm making 31. What am I going to get? He's like, we're going to give you $33,000. $2,000 raise.
Right.
Oh, that was it.
Right.
So I started my first company off that, but I'll never forget how I just felt my time is worth so much more, you know, than a $2,000 a year raise. And it kind of segues me into my next question, which is, at what moment did you know, I got to be an entrepreneur. I got to go into business for myself. And that was just that. There was just no other option.
I think it for me was when there was 2 points. So the first point I knew that I wanted to be an entrepreneur was when I saw the flexibility my grandfather had. He ran a pavings company all when I was a kid. He was able to pick us up from school whenever he wanted to, whenever there was an issue at home, like if my parents were late at work and he needed to kind of run over and cook us supper real quick, he could do that because he was his own boss. And I loved the fact that he had that type of control. And I think anybody who's an entrepreneur can agree that like you don't really like that idea of somebody telling you what to do all the time. Like I'm horrible at it. Like if my parents tell me what to do, it never went over well. Like I was always upset about the fact that my parents had control over me, which they did. But like it always was uncomfortable for me. So the idea of working for someone and having them always tell me what to do was uncomfortable. But over time I recognized, okay, I need to surround myself with great people, learn from them. And then once I get the skills that I need, I'll be able to get out of this and be able to kind of create my own thing, or at least partner with someone, was my thought. So for me, it was that type of a moment, early days, that kind of planted the seed that I wanted that freedom. And then from there, it kind of evolved to a point when I made the leap after I kind of just signed a down payment on a mortgage for my condo. Me and my wife were just announcing that we were engaged. Like things were all moving up in terms of expenses. Like similar situation though as you, I asked my boss for a change in my job title, and it was just simply I wanted to go from being a digital marketing specialist to a digital strategist because I was doing strategy work for clients. And I asked for that change in title, and they said no. And I was like, oh no, you're not telling me that I'm not changing my title. Like I'm out. So I pieced out the next the next day.
I like how you kind of skip over that. You're like, yo, it was more. Yeah. Ross Simmonds was out, and there was some drama with it too. He just kind of, he's like, yeah, I pieced out the next day. Yeah. So next question, Ryan. Next question.
Yeah, I can't have someone tell me I can't change my job title. It's a pretty simple, small thing. So yeah, at that point I was like, I'm out of here.
Now you're online and people, this is something that is so hard. Gary Vaynerchuk does a really good job of this. Thank You Economy was a book that he wrote. That book was probably one of the most impactful books I know for me, just because it was almost more of a mindset. We did talk about Ryan Holiday, ego is the enemy. Yesterday, I think those are huge. But if you're giving away all this content for free, which you are, right? You're giving away so much content, it's all free. How the hell do you get paid? Now, people don't understand this. They think when you give something away, you should always get something in return. And people don't understand. I think that's where the concept of content and inbound marketing really takes shape. Because it's funny. If somebody was to go out and say, hey, call Ryan Holtz Marketing for all your marketing needs. It's just like, God, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So explain to somebody how that works. How does the inbound work? Why is Ross giving away everything for quote unquote free? And how does Ross get paid?
Yeah. So I think at the end of the day, the idea is if you give the world value, the world will give you value back. That's a simple description of the way it works, right? Like I always tell people, if you want to succeed in this space, you do have to be able to give value first. And then once you demonstrate value, that establishes trust. So when I write a blog post and the content is very educational as it relates to B2B marketing or social media marketing, someone's going to read that content and they're going to associate that value that they're receiving with me and my company and with my team. And that value then results in down the road a potential opportunity for them to reach out to us to service their brand, to service their clients. So we get paid through the fact that our content adds value, and then people will have us top of mind, and then they reach out and they ask us for help as it relates to kind of executing. So a lot of the times when I create a piece of content, the content will be very in depth, and it will intimidate a lot of people. A lot of people will be like, I can't do all of this work. So they'll reach out and they're like, Ross, is this the type of work that you would do? And I'm like, yes, of course. That's the exact work that we offer. That is what we do for people. So you show people the value that you can give them, show them how complex it is and how challenging it is. And if they're not able to kind of make the time to do it, because there's two things you can spend your time or your money, they're going to say, Ross, I'm willing to pay you to essentially do this for us. So I think it comes down to that. You show people value, and then when they see that value, they associate it with your name, and they're more likely to come back for more down the road as it relates to services or buying your product, things like that. What's so funny is the way I run my company, and this is especially in the automotive, because automotive, there's a lot of ego and there's a lot of, I always coin myself, I'm not Walmart, I'm Versace. Right. And Versace doesn't do discounts, right? Yeah. Exactly. And when it comes to that, have you ever had to fire a client? I have. So yeah, I've definitely fired a client. I fired prospects. I fired clients, leads. Definitely. I think at the end of the day, you have to work with people who understand the value of your time. You have to work with people who understand the value of the services you're offering. And some people just don't get there, right? So, and that's okay. It's completely okay to walk away from a client relationship. I had an engagement on LinkedIn a few days ago where someone was saying, like, some clients aren't willing to pay for strategy, so you just have to do it for free. And I'm like, no way. That's when you say no to a client. Like, you shouldn't have to kind of sacrifice the value that you offer and the value that you can deliver your client. And I think at the end of the day, I'll fire clients if they're not able to see the value anytime it's not there. It's a tough business to be in because you're again, we talked about this yesterday. It's not like you have a shoe or a watch or, you're selling space, you're selling air, you're selling time, you're selling, IP, intellectual property, you're selling education. Do you ever get clients sometimes where when the relationship did break down, it was more so on they got egotistical about the relationship. So they're almost like, well, it was never our fault. It was almost your fault. And you just kind of feel like, my God, I put a lot of work into that. Like, they don't even, it's almost sad because you're like,
they don't even understand what they had. Like they don't understand the value. And then you kind of like sometimes document, well, let's see how they do in the next 6 to 12 months. And sometimes they just go, whoop.
Right.
Have you ever had that scenario?
In the early days, a lot. So like in the early days, I found it to be a consistent thing. And then I think what I realized was you need to make it extremely clear to clients exactly what it is you're going to deliver, exactly how you're going to deliver it to them. And then it removes that opportunity for them to kind of be surprised and think, oh, no, you didn't deliver this, because it's clearly laid out. So it's a learning curve that a lot of freelancers and marketers kind of go through in any service, whether you're a designer, a developer, a marketer, you name it. If you're offering a service to people and you're not very clear on what the deliverable is going to be, how many rounds of revisions they're going to get, things like that, it can get murky, it can get messy. So right now, it's like our process is tight. We understand exactly how we're going to deliver value to clients, and we make sure that that's consistent across the board.
It's interesting because the tactic that I take to it is I'm a firefighter. As an entrepreneur, you're constantly putting out fires, and everything's my fault. Everything's my fault. It's all my fault. I'm very empathetic because I feel like I deal with a lot of large organizations. So with large organizations, and you know this, one person might totally buy in, but they got a whole bureaucracy of decision makers that they're not getting along. Maybe Susie doesn't like Larry, and like sometimes you're completely exited from the whole dynamic, which is out of your control. And that's why sometimes I'm like, listen, I'm empathetic and I totally understand. This one is huge coming up. Owning your own channels, Facebook, Google traffic. Now, a prime example, and I'll open up with this. People would say, even when I started this podcast, I used to direct everybody to the specific Google Play and iTunes links to the podcast. And then I thought, geez, Ryan, you're a dumb digital marketer for being a digital marketer. You want everybody going through your site and then accessing it. And then I got a lead capture form and all these things. Now, for me, I feel like iTunes and Google Play, they're already big. We can all guarantee that me and you and 10 other digital marketers do not have the traffic combined that iTunes will get on an everyday basis. 100%. So for me, I believe that when I put out my content, my distribution is going to go through the first level that I own no matter what. So could you speak, and I know you did post about this, and it's a big topic, and I read some of the comments on there, and you're right. Some people, I think one guy on your stream literally said, well, this is way over my head, but I'm sure I'm sure it's something I'm going to have to kind of think about, down the road. So just could you give the listeners, what the hell does that mean? Yeah. So at the end of the day, when you're creating content on social media, you're creating content online in general, you're typically hosting that content somewhere. And tools like instant articles on Facebook, Google AMP are offering people the opportunity to now publish content that lives on these domains. When it lives on their domain, when it lives on a Facebook, when it lives on a Google, those platforms own your content. So they're going to be able to generate the revenue. You're going to have a scaled back amount of feature set. So you're not going to be able to have a pop-up. You're not going to be able to kind of have that experience that you want. And because of that, you're limiting the ultimate success of your content. Medium.com is another great channel. I love Medium.com, but it strips away so much functionality that you have to recognize that by using Medium.com, you're limiting your ability to capture emails. You're limiting your ability to generate traffic to your site that's ultimately going to rank on SEO from a Google standpoint. Like you're losing so many benefits. So for me, I always tell people, take ownership of your channel. Own your first name, your last name.com, own your brand's website, and host your content there first and foremost. And then look at all these other channels, not as a place where you should host your content, but as a channel in which you can distribute your content. So recognize that on Facebook, yes, there's 1 billion people using Facebook groups, but that doesn't mean that you're no longer going to have an email list. It means that Facebook groups are going to be a place where you distribute your content. So for me, I think a big mistake that a lot of people make is they put all of their eggs in one basket, and all it takes is for one of these big companies to say, we're going to change our algorithm, and then they're no longer able to reach their audience. When if you have somebody's email, you can always reach them, right? Like if I have your email, I can reach you with an email all the time, unless you press spam or you block me or something like that. But I think that you have to own your channels, you have to own your communities, and you have to own that relationship. Well, and look at it, even if you look at I think when it comes to micro content, especially on Facebook, a few journalistic companies that I really love because I look at that engagement that they get is one of them is Insider. And then one of them is Vice. I really love Vice. I like what Shane Smith, I think, is the founder, one of them. The way they put out their micro content to me is very impressive because they put out radio, TV, newspaper. Is it dead completely? No, it's not dead, but I mean, I'm not. If somebody says, Ryan, we have a limited budget, are you going to go to the traditional or no? Like, I'm going digital. I don't like spending $1 on anything that I can't track.
Right.
I'm like, what? Like, no. If I spend $1, like, I want to know Lucy Liu clicked on my fucking ad for 69 cents. And now my point to the question is that with Facebook, and we know they have the EdgeRank algorithm, right? And I'm not sure what the percentage is now, but at one point, basically, let's say you had 100 fans, just a clean number, only 13, maybe 10 to 13% of them are even going to see it for free. So it's pay to play.
Right.
As soon as Facebook was, in my opinion, is the biggest digital bait and switch of all time. If you go back to the early days of it, they basically said everybody was, using their personal friends list as a, business and everything. And Facebook said, we need you to get everybody over to your fan page. Right, and then the fan page, everybody's seeing it. They're like, I love it. We got all this accessibility. And then Facebook's like, boom. Here's the lock and key. And and that's it. And your friends limit's going to be at 5,000 and whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, how does somebody, like, in your opinion, what's a hack for somebody that says, I want to get bigger on Facebook as a business, but maybe they don't have the big money to spend to push it out? Is that something you would say, maybe go to the groups aspect, or what would you tell them?
So I think one of the big pieces, like, for years, marketers have been screaming content is king, right? Like everybody needs to create more content, you'll conquer the world, and the world will be yours.
Context is God. Context is God, right?
Yeah,
yes.
Exactly.
Okay.
Like, everybody has screamed that.
Yeah.
And because of that, people have just shared tons of content on Facebook, and people fell into that trap of thinking if they put up a post on Facebook, they're going to win. I think that the way that you get around that is being more aggressive with the distribution of your content, which is why groups is so important and why I think it's one of the most underrated opportunities for any marketer. You can go into these Facebook groups, you can find people who are relevant, and you can share that content with a very specific audience and ensure, like you're talking about, you want to know that Lucy Liu's clicking on your content. You can do that with Facebook groups.
Yeah.
Like, if I ran an Etsy shop and I was selling, I don't know, a hair product that brides wear, I would go into all of the new bride groups on Facebook, and I would be building relationships with every new bride every single month by sharing valuable content with them directly in there, because they're going to get updates. They're going to get a notification. They're going to have a conversation with you. And you could even ask them questions like, what type of hair product should we create next? And guess who you're talking to? Brides. It doesn't get more targeted than
I'm having a hashtag nerdgasm right now. Hashtag nerdgasm. Hashtag SEOgasm. Hashtag everything. No, it's just no.
Gold. People sleep on groups. There's so much opportunity there. I think you just have to think about who it is that you're trying to connect with. And I promise you that there's a group for those people somewhere on Facebook that you can connect with.
Now, what do you think about this internally? So sometimes I'll bring up realtors as an example. If you go to like a realtor's Instagram or Twitter, oftentimes 80% of their following is realtors. Now, this is my philosophy in business. Even as marketers, we're fellow marketers. Do I want to be friends with you because you're a marketer? To be honest with you, no, I don't really care, because I'm more customer focused. I don't think that Ross is going to get me paid. I think that the customer is going to get me paid. Now, that's not why I'm in the business of what I do, although we do need to make money to live and all these things. So I oftentimes, I won't say, it's not that I don't play nice in the sandbox.
Yeah.
And I don't play nice in the sandbox. I'll just say, I'm very, it's weird. Like, a lot of friends growing up, very external, go out and speak, but my circle is very small. And when it comes on a personal note for me, my family, my son, my dog, my wife, like, that's my inner most important. And I'm almost reclusive. So people get surprised when they say, oh, Ryan, you're very outgoing. I'm more of a kind of I love being alone. This is my laboratory, I like, literally, I go from a city, which is Edmonton, that's, 1 million plus with surrounding. Yeah. And I come out to the mountains here. If I was to show you the laptop, you won't it's a retirement community. First of all, 90% of these homes are empty. And it's just like, I'll walk with my wife and we don't see anybody for like ever. Yeah. And I love it because it's like, so for you, I'm sure on LinkedIn you can see people that are like, Ross, I love your content. And then people that are just mooching. Like the moochie, hashtag moochie. And they're just, they're almost trying to take everything you're building and like go right behind you. But then to your face, they're trying to make it seem like, I really love your content. Right. Do you ever get worried when you put a piece out that your competition's going to take it and use it against you? I'm asking this question. It's a very, very shallow, not smart question. I understand that. However, I'm playing the devil's advocate on this for other people that feel like, I don't want to put out anything free. My competition is going to use it to dominate me. Exactly.
Right. Yeah, no, I have no fear in it. Right. Like my audience isn't marketers necessarily who I would compete with. My audience is the internal marketer who works at a B2B startup or something like that. So for me, when I share the content and I see my competition, so to speak, commenting on it, it doesn't faze me. It doesn't impact me, because in my mind, by them commenting in the algorithm world, as soon as they comment, their followers and their connections are going to see that they commented on the piece, and then they're going to see me, and then that's all good. I'm okay with that.
So, Ross is a digital assassin. When you come in his world, it doesn't. And here's the thing about, and going back to the owning your own channels, people don't understand this. In my opinion, your website and your channels are mom and dad. They're the parents. Then, as we know, in cultured families, you send your kids out, go get that rice, go get that money, and you bring it back. So you're right. In the algorithm world, yes, somebody comments, but then they always come back to home, which is Ross Simmonds' profile, Ross Simmonds' website. And this is where people just don't understand that. So and I did read a study about this, and maybe you have better numbers than I do, but it was something like 10% of internet users generate almost 90% of content. So there's a lot of people just stalking and watching. Yeah. How many people do you see all the time? And they'll never comment or like any of your stuff. And then they're like, Ross, I seen on Wednesday, you were there. Man, on Friday, you were over there. How was Orlando? You're like, dude, you've been following me close.
Exactly.
Like you're digital.
It's constant. Like a lot of people are passive with their content consumption, which is why like podcasts are taking off, right? Like people love passive consumption. They don't want to create. Most people just want to consume, and that's okay. I love the fact that people want to consume. Like my audience is primarily people who consume content. Your listeners, vast majority of them are consuming content, and that's okay. Absolutely. I think when you're in the business world, if you're trying to grow your brand, you have to transition and kind of allocate some time where you're also creating. And I think that when you create content, you have the opportunity to have that impact where you're able to reach more people. And if your competition copies it, that's fine too, because at the end of the day, you're still going to get credit. Like as long as you get credit for your work, the only time I get upset is if a competitor or somebody steals my content and I don't get credit. That's the only time I would get upset about somebody taking my work and sharing it and redistributing it.
And in essence, though, you have no control over that. Like, I mean,
you don't.
I mean, you know they did it. It is what it is.
The good thing is, like, I'm at a point now where people will tag me when they see someone stealing my stuff. So I'll just jump on there and I'll be like, bro, you stole my post. Like, what are you doing?
At least change up the words a bit.
Exactly.
Yeah. Exactly. Like your friend there, Mr. Clench, tell him, send him a message and I ask him to accept my connection request because I want to tag him because I literally put a little graphic and then I was going to reword him. Like, no, man, I love exactly what he wrote. So I'm like, no, the way he used the words of, humanity and sloppy and messy. I'm like, I don't know who this dude is, but I like him. I just like it. He's just a real dude. I really appreciate that. And are you good friends with him though? Like, do you know him?
I know him. Yeah,
how can somebody reach out? Give his username on the show. How can somebody reach out to him if they want to, need some writing or anything like that? Just give one username.
Clench, he's a great copywriter. You can look him up on LinkedIn. That's probably the best way to find him. Send him a message. He's a great dude.
So if Mackenzie accuses me of stealing his thing, you are my proof that no, dude, the guy gave you a shout out. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Exactly. I'm going to get to the end here. I do want to kind of end off with one quote, and it's by Jada Pinkett Smith. She said, I taught my kids to worry about being respected, but not liked, because that's the trap. What is your interpretation of that quote?
I love it. So for me, it comes down to the same reason why my Twitter handle is The Cool is Cool. If you listen to the words of Lupe Fiasco's song, The Cool, he's talking about a kid who got caught up in the idea of being cool and how it took him kind of down the wrong path and he wasn't able to kind of do what he should have done. So for me, it's a constant reminder to myself, don't get caught up in the likes. Don't get caught up in the comments. Don't get caught up in the page views. Don't worry about that. Stay focused on the vision and try to accomplish that. I think in high school, a lot of people make the mistake of trying to be the cool kid. And I was one of them. Like I put a lot of my self-worth on the fact that I was one of the most popular kids in school. But in doing that, I didn't spend as much time as I could have on that fantasy football blog. I didn't spend as much time as I could have creating real value outside of that little bubble of my high school. So that reminder to me is like, the world is big. You don't need to be cool. All you need to do is keep constantly adding value. And I love, I forget exactly what it is, but you have a quote in your status on Skype about value that I love.
Yeah. Without value. Well, I just came up with that on my head. I don't know if somebody else had it, but without value, what's the point?
Right, exactly. And that's what The Cool is Cool is a reminder to me of. It's like the idea is it doesn't matter how cool you are. You need to constantly be looking to add value because, as we talked about earlier, there's an expiry date. And nobody's going to remember how cool you were. They're going to remember what you did for the world.
Well, it's so interesting. It's, I think Russell Peters said a quote, and he said they're basically talking about, he basically said how in his career he kind of came out, obviously starting small, got some success, and then basically not blacklisted, but he said his style of comedy basically, like he had a lot of haters, and he said just remember, even if you want to ignore somebody, you have to be thought of in order to be ignored. That's true. Madonna, I posted this quote the other day, but her quote basically said, "Bitch, if you're still following me and watching me, you're a fan."
Right.
Like, even if you don't want to connect with me, but you're looking at all my stuff.
That's true.
And I'm sure this is one thing I do not like about LinkedIn. And I was going to post this Madonna quote, and I still might do it because people view you in private mode.
Right.
Why?
Right. Yeah.
Why?
I don't do it.
You get it done to you though.
Yeah. Definitely.
Like, can you give me an intellectual, can you pull some sort of intellectual reason why somebody would want to view you in private mode? Because my mind goes to the dark side. I'm like, what? Like, what do you like? It's weird.
The only thing I would say is that people are, I don't know, to be honest. Like, I don't know. I think it's a fear. It's fear. People don't want to have that they're checking you out. Like, maybe it is your competition.
I get a lot of this, man.
Yeah.
Private mode. Do you know, yesterday I had 270 people view my profile in private mode.
Wow. That might be a bunch of X's, man.
I hope not, man. That scares me about Facebook too, right? Because I'm all over the world now. It's like I remember Ryan when he was 19 years old. He's in the club with the Heineken and the Cavassier bottle up there. Ross, we're gonna get into just a quick little fire round, and then you can end off with how people can reach out to you. But before I get into the fire round, is there any last thing you want to say? Anything at all, man?
Nothing, man. This has been great. Thanks again for having me on. I'm excited. I hope the listeners have been able to get some real value from this.
Absolutely. Okay, fire round. What's for dinner tonight?
Ooh, good question. So tonight we're having haddock. So we're on the East Coast of Nova Scotia. Fish is a big thing here. So we're doing some fish.
Can you send me some of that Atlantic stuff with the coffee?
Exactly.
Man.
Atlantic salmon.
Actually, true story. When I did go out to New Brunswick, I have a few dealers out there. When I went out there the first time, they had these like boxes you can put all the seafood in and then bring it on the plane. Man, we have a lot of people like in Alberta, especially because of the oil boom and stuff that are from the East Coast. Yeah. And man, walking through with my carry-on with this fish, I felt like people were going to massacre me. This was like a hot commodity, right?
It's true. Everybody misses the seafood.
Are you a hunter or gatherer?
Gatherer.
Okay. You're a new addition to a crayon box. What color would you be?
Black.
Who would win the fight between Superman and Batman?
Batman.
Okay. What is the number one thing that drives you?
My family and friends, I'd say for sure.
Okay. Proudest moment personally?
I'd say it's been able to kind of give back to the community and help some young kids kind of go into entrepreneurship and business.
Biggest professional accomplishment?
I'd say it's probably just been constantly being able to give back as well. Like that's, I know it sounds personal, but without my profession, I wouldn't be able to do it.
Okay. How do you define success?
Being able to wake up in the morning, go to bed at night, and do whatever I want in between.
What are you scared of?
Fear itself. I don't want to get in my own way. I think that that's the biggest fear that I have, is that at some point I'll be so disconnected from the work itself that I'll be afraid. I'll say no to a project that I should say yes to. I'll be afraid to kind of take a leap of faith into something new. I want to always be engaged in some regard.
Your biggest inner me is your enemy, right?
Exactly. I like it.
Do you have a role model?
I love everything that Muhammad Ali's done in his career. R.I.P. But yeah, Muhammad Ali was someone I looked up to.
What is your favorite thing to do that's non-work related?
It's non-work related. I'd say it's spend time with friends and family and travel. Like I love to get on the road, see new places. I've also started to pick up on, I love getting active. So between the gym and going to yoga, that's always good as well.
What, when you think of Halifax, what's the first word that comes to mind?
Hollywood.
One piece of advice you would give someone who is scared shitless.
Just do it. You're going to die. So you may as well do it anyway. No regrets.
When you hear the word star, what is the first thing that comes to mind?
Muhammad Ali came to mind as soon as you said it.
Okay. Now, one guest I had on, he said something so nice. We were just talking and he said, Ryan, not only is a podcast really great, but he's like, it's also works as a almost like a vault of, you talking, having guests, it'll live forever. Right. It's a piece of content that you can go back 20 years. But he said, your son can listen to his dad on auto replay for like his whole life.
That's pretty cool.
And I just thought about it. I'm like, wow, and so you don't have kids, but assuming you did have kids, we all know we owe a death. So if everything goes well, you're going to die. You're going to die before your kids. We want that. What would you want to tell your future kids as just a message to them?
You're enough. That would be my main message. It's like, look in the mirror and recognize that you're enough. Keep striving to do more, but never believe that you don't have what it takes to accomplish something. And
last thing is, when it comes to all your achievements, is there anything you do or a list you've created or anything that you just like just literally, man, just list it out? Is there any way, do you keep track? So funny enough, I had a list that was dated from like the time I was 18 up until 30, and I'm now 30, and I've checked off everything. So I got to create a new list. So that's my next step. I told my wife that over the Christmas break, I would be creating my next list, and between now and 60. So that's on my task list. So like there's if you look, right, you've spoken at conferences behind me. This is a stack of lanyards. Yeah, and a lot of them are from conferences that I was like, wow, football helmets, some magazines, this Holtz plaque back there. This was done by a listener of the podcast. Oh, that's sick. Yeah, super cool. Do you see the action figure? I have my own action figure. Is that you? I was wondering. Yeah, that's an action figure that I got. But is there anywhere in your place, or do you have a rumpus? I'm trying to get into your head. Do you have a little corner where you're like, this is the Ross Simmonds shrine? No, I don't. So damn. Don't. I know I should. I really should. Okay, so here's my pledge to you, and we are making a verbal contract on this, okay? 30 days from now, I'm literally going to write this down. You need to have, I don't care what you do in your house, you got to take a picture and send it to me. All right. Because I feel like things, and I had this conversation with somebody the other day, and they said, well, Ryan, it's a big difference between being egotistical and, not. And I said, no, I think that everybody should celebrate their accomplishments. And as much as you want to help people, always make sure that you're helping yourself. So